Hello, it's Sammy here, and today I want to talk about what I learned from overcoming 5 different addictions. So let's talk about it. First, what addictions I overcome. So I overcome 7 year long alcohol and drug addiction, benzodiazepine addiction, 13-year long cigarette addiction, 16-year long porn addiction, and 10 sugar and junk food addiction. And what I learned from overcoming these different addictions. The first lesson is that addiction is a mindset. Even I said that I overcome 5 different addictions, but in reality I only had one addiction because it's this one mindset that created these 5 different manifestations of this one mindset. So the problem is not really the physical behavior, but it's this mindset that creates these behaviors. And what creates this mindset of addiction? Usually it's the trauma, but more specifically, I would say that it's this discontentment that we have with ourselves or with our lives. And usually, addiction solves a really big problem in our lives. It solves the problem of discontentment. If we normally live in a state of discontentment and we use some behavior, and this behavior gives us a freedom of this state of discontentment, then we are not addicted to this behavior, but we are addicted to its freedom that it gives us. It gives us the freedom from the state of discontentment. And yeah, usually the trauma is reason for this discontentment. And that's why it's so hard to quit addiction, because it fulfills some very deep psychological need in our lives that we normally lack. And it's the root of this mindset of addiction. So the first lesson is that addiction is a mindset. The second lesson is that it takes a lot of courage to quit addiction, but quitting physical behavior is not the hardest part. The hardest part was to make that decision to last. And more than that, can you build a great life after the addiction? Maybe that was the most challenging part, because it takes so much time and patience to build a really great life after the addiction and learn to really enjoy your life without the addiction. Because you have to really address the root causes of your addiction, and then you have to heal those root causes. And it can be time consuming, and it can take a lot of self inquiry. So that's for sure the hardest part. And it was the lesson number two. So the third lesson is that your environment creates your reality. If you have an addiction in your life, it's because you have an environment that creates addictions. If you have sobriety in your life, it's because you have an environment that creates sobriety. If you have an amazing life, it's because you have an environment that creates amazing life. It's really simple, but not always easy, because it takes a lot of discipline to create those kind of environments. So this is the lesson that I will use till this very day, because you have to just understand what you want, and then you have to understand the environment that creates the desired result. And when I talk about environment, I mean about your physical health, mental health, your habits, relationships, the places where you are, and things like that. And basically those things creates the outcomes in your life. And maybe the biggest mistake that people do when they try to create sobriety, for example, is that they try to create sobriety in an environment that creates addictions. And I think the first step to create sobriety is to really understand your current environment and then just remove things from your environment that supports addiction and then add things that creates sobriety. So that was the lesson number 3. The fourth lesson is that your approach for quitting addiction determines your destinations. Pretty much how you approach this problem determines what kind of future you will have. So there's different approach how you can start to handle your addiction. The most common one is to quit physical behavior and then just live your life without behavior. And the problem with this approach is that it doesn't addresses the root causes. And think about if you try to be without behavior that has been giving you a lot of pleasure, relief, or freedom, and then you try to be without this behavior, then inevitably you will face a lot of resistance. And maybe that's the biggest problem with quitting the addiction approach. So the second approach is dissolving your addiction. This is about focusing to solve the identity behind the addiction. So this focuses more to address the root causes and focus to heal those root causes. And this is the approach that will give you a freedom and totally new existence, because it changes your frequency and it focuses to solve this mindset of addiction. And the third approach is addiction alchemy. It's about turning your life upside down. The so-called weakness becomes strength. So this focuses more to build a great life and change this addiction to passion. That before you do things that more destroys your life, like these addictions, but you change the nature of this thing, and then you start to have things in your life that builds your life. So this focuses more to change the nature of this addiction and not the content of the addiction. People talk about the topics like good addiction, but addiction really can't be a good, because by nature addiction is negative, because you always use it to escape from your reality. And if you use good behavior to escape your reality, then it doesn't matter, because the main problem is with this escapism. So those was the different approach for quitting addiction. And the fourth lesson was that your approach for quitting addiction determines your destination. The fifth lesson is that desire is a hell of a thing, but the transmutation of desire is heaven-like thing. And this is the lesson that I learned from all of these different manifestations of addiction. So really, only following your desires is road to hell. But if you can turn these desires some higher aspirations, you literally create heaven on earth. So what I mean about transmutation of desire. For example, don't going for money but going for purpose or helping others. That's one example. Not eating for pleasure but eating for living. Not going for sexual desires but going for sexual transmutation. That's basically transmutation of desire. And in my own experience, when you transmute your desire, you're going to have more space to enjoy your own being and presence, and life will be more fulfilling. So the fifth lesson is desire is a hell of a thing, but the transmutation of desire is heaven-like thing. And I want to give you a couple bonus lessons. This lesson was something that I learned recently, and it's about understanding your personality type. Especially if you are just starting to quit addiction, I recommend to really understand your personality type, because then you know how to motivate yourself, and you know specifically what motivates your personality type to take action. And if you want to know more about this, I recommend to read book which is The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin, and take the online quiz about that book. Then you can know your personality type. And I want to add to this that let's say you have a drinking problem. Then it's really important to understand your drinking profile. Do you have an alcohol addiction? Are you a social drinker? Are you a stressful drinker? Do you drink when it's weekend? When you understand your drinking profile, then it's way easier to design your sobriety that fits particularly your drinking profile. So that was my lessons from overcoming 5 different addictions, but in reality just overcoming one addiction, because it's this mindset. And how you can benefit from these lessons. So the first lesson gives you right focus. It's about focusing to solve this mindset. The second lesson gives you understanding what is the real challenge in addiction. Not the quitting, but making the decision last. The third lesson helps you understand how you can solve those problems, the mindset and the real challenge, creating right environment that solves those problems. And the fourth lesson helps you to understand the importance of your approach of your addiction, and your approach dictates your destination. And the fifth lesson teaches you that following your desires is not the answer for good life, but the transmutation of your desire is answer for amazing life. And the bonus lesson helps you to understand the importance of your personality type. When you know your personality type, you can know how to motivate yourself. So, thank you for watching this video, and bye bye.